Harper Lee is an American novelist widely known for her 1960 Pulitzer Prize-winning To Kill a Mockingbird, which deals with the racism she observed as a child in her hometown of Monroe, Alabama. It won a Pulitzer and is considered an American classic. In 1962, To Kill a Mockingbird, the movie, starring Gregory Peck, was released. It won 3 Academy Awards, widely considered one of the greatest films ever made. Harper Lee is now 89. Mockingbird was the only novel she ever wrote until now. The sequel of sorts to Mockingbird comes out Tuesday, July 14th. It's called Go Set A Watchman. Watchman was written in the 1950s and long thought lost, recently rediscovered, only now being published, which is good news for the book industry, and brings us to the gentleman next to me, Joe Hight, owner and president of Best of Books up in Edmond. And Joe, great to see you again.
Well, thank you, Dave.
Thank
Good
you
to
for
see
stopping
you again.
in. And how's the book biz these days?
The book business is doing very well, especially with a book like Go Set A Watchman coming out. It's incredible the amount of furor and excitement about this book and about Harper Lee herself. Whether Harper Lee actually approved of the book or not. And of course, I think over time we found that she did, even though she's in an assisted living center suffering from macular degeneration and she's hard of hearing and everything else. Everything points to that she actually wanted this book published since she wrote it herself.
And a lot of people are interested in what happened to the characters, how did they advance. In fact, today, as we tape this on Friday, the first chapter has been released on Wall Street Journal and The Guardian, and you've read that first chapter.
I have read that first chapter, and it actually takes you 20 years in the future where Scout, or Jean Louise, is actually coming back from New York to visit her father, the famous lawyer Atticus, who was made famous by Gregory Peck in the movie, of course. And she's coming back to Alabama, coming back to Macomb, to a world that's changed, but not changed as far as racial equality and other types of injustices that exist in that part of the Deep South.
So 20 years later, this would put this in the 50s, right?
It'd put it in the 50s. The original one was in the 30s. Now we're in the 50s as well. And of course, it's made even more kind of exciting. Reese Witherspoon did the audio on it, so you can actually listen to her read the first chapter with her Southern accent and everything like that. So that's also added to the excitement itself.
One of the big things about this book was the writing style that Harper Lee had.
Yes.
Very truthful to her experiences, but it was also easy to read. And did you find that from chapter 1 of this?
So far, yes. It's. I don't think you're going to find it to be the exact as To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't think you should expect it to be exactly like To Kill a Mockingbird, but the language and how she tells the story is very, very similar. You see Scout, that Jean Louise now older, but still have that kind of feistiness about her that people really liked in the original Kill a Mockingbird when she was only 6 years old. I mean, and I think that will add to how people really want to read the story. It's going to be difficult for me as I read the story in To Go Set A Watchman with how great To Kill a Mockingbird was. I mean, it's just a tremendous, dramatic story about racial injustice and the loss of innocence through young children. But what the first chapter does give you, it gives you a surprise twist.
And that would be the characters. We're losing one and we're actually gaining one.
Exactly. We're actually gaining a love interest. Well, maybe a love interest.
She's not sure.
She's not sure herself. And we're also losing Jim. And that's already been publicized, so I'm not spoiling anybody or anything like that. But Jim, her older brother, the one who was such a key, integral part of To Kill a Mockingbird, suddenly drops dead. Wow.
And it was just kind of mentioned in passing, and probably the other chapters will go into more detail, maybe, of what happened there. But it was just kind of like, yeah, he suddenly dropped dead. What?
And then you go on. And I can't wait to read the rest to see what exactly happened to him. But again, this new love interest apparently has become the adopted son of Atticus, the one who will take over his law career, but also someone who had a war background and someone who's deeply in love with Jean Louise and wants to marry her.
Should be interesting. Speaking of backgrounds, let's back up and talk about you for a second. Joe, of course, was with the Oklahoman for 27 years. And welcome to the new downtown Oklahoma. And you spent a lot of time up at Brittany Broadway.
This is a beautiful place.
After the Oklahoman, you went up to Colorado Springs as the editor there, picked up a Pulitzer Prize yourself. Congratulations. Tell me about the transition from newspapers to books. It's still the publishing world.
It's still the publishing world, but very, very much different today. I think the book world is dealing with the newspaper world and other types of publishing are dealing with these days in the fact you have new digital strategy coming on. But at the same sense, a lot of people still read these. I mean, they still read the print version and want to do that. And you know, I often tell customers, you know, science kind of backs up reading these types of things. I mean, there's some scientific studies that show that if you read an actual book before you go to bed at night, you'll sleep better.
Really?
You'll be more empathetic. You'll retain more. And we actually, when we bought the bookstore, we were hearing from teachers who are saying that, you know, I think as the digital world, smartphones, iPads are really good to get quick information, but books are how you retain, how students retain materials, because they can go through and they can circle it, they can underline it, they can do everything, and they can mark it and go back to it and everything like that. The most recent study that I read was out of, I think, Stanford and Munich produced a study that said that if you have a home with at least 2 bookcases, your children will learn at a rate 30% higher than the average child. And so there's still science to back up that, yeah, this is important. But again, as I tell people, I have a lot of devices myself.
That's right.
And I use them for different things, and I will continue to do that way. But I still like a good book. And I like a good book in my hands as well.
You know, the cell phones, the tablets, and the books, they're all devices, all tools for, you know, bringing in information. What have you seen as far as To Kill a Mockingbird? Have you seen sales of that pick up in advance of?
You bet. I think people are suddenly, they're going, okay, I used Cliff Notes, or I read it 20-some years ago, and I want to reacquaint myself.
Couldn't tell you the last time I read it. It's been a while.
And so I've actually, this is a book that my daughter had in school, so I picked it up and reread it myself because I wanted to reacquaint myself with the actual To Kill a Mockingbird. And you know, it was the perfect combination for an author. You know, Nell Lee, who's Harper Lee, known, but Nell is her real name. Perfect combination is you had a book of such magnitude that was released, and then a year or 2 later, a movie comes out that's just as good. You know, Gregory Peck. I mean, who else could play Atticus? And I think if you look in movie terms, I think there's been the American Film Institute released of all-time heroes. Okay, Atticus, I guess, was #1. Indiana Jones was #2. Okay, so I mean, a lot is said for someone like Atticus and someone like Scout, how much they have been ingrained in our culture, our literary culture. And I think that's very, very important to think about, is that we have a literary culture, and To Kill a Mockingbird certainly revolves around that.
5 decades later, it's still moving the needle. Now, what are you guys doing on Tuesday for the book release?
we decided, you know, during like the release of Harry Potter books and books like that, they had midnight releases. And there are actually, I think Smart Books in Tulsa is doing a midnight release. And I think in Monroeville, Alabama, where Harper Lee, I think they're going to do readings from midnight on. And the bookstore there has already had 7,000 pre-orders. And we've had more than 100 pre-orders ourselves. But we decided, well, what can we do different? And we started talking about it. And there was a lot of foods referenced in To Kill a Mockingbird. Food was a very, very important part of To Kill a Mockingbird. Matter of fact, there's a place called the Southern Food and Beverage Museum in New Orleans that's released a 37-page research document about all the foods in To Kill a Mockingbird.
That's some fun research right there.
So one of our employees, Shelby King, actually found the research study on it and found all the foods referenced in it. So we have a restaurant right next to us called the Bayou Grill, which has New Orleans-type Southern food. So we went to Terry and Thais Goodwin, and when he said, hey, how about a dinner? How about if we did a dinner with all the foods referenced into Kill a Mockingbird? And you're talking about collard greens and crackling breads and sardines and fried chicken and you know, you're talking about all these types of foods, green tomatoes. There's just, you know, even pound cake. They're going to have praline pecan pound cake.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Okay.
Sardines, not a big fan. Do you like sardines?
Well, you know, actually, I'm going to try it. The appetizers are a sardine appetizer and fried green tomatoes. So far, I think fried green tomatoes are leading, but I think I'm going to try the sardine appetizer.
Very nice.
You know, I think when growing up, people kind of go, oh, sardines. Growing up, sardines were an important part. I mean, I ate sardines as a kid.
So was Spam, but you're not going to see me digging into some Spam either.
So we asked Thais, who's the head chef, you know, could you create a menu that, and we showed her the document. She actually did create a menu.
It's very cool.
Around it. So we did that, and we sold out the first seating, 6 to 8 p.m., quickly. And then we sold out the second seating, 8 to 10. So we're completely sold out.
Great ideas.
Yeah, and so we're pretty excited about it. The one thing that's really funny, though, is that with this dinner, there's been rumors like, they're actually going to bring Harper Lee to Oklahoma. And I'm going, no. Harper Lee will not venture out of Monroeville, Alabama again.
So she's not going to be here.
No, she's not coming to Oklahoma. I think at 89, she's, you know, she deserves to stay in Monroeville, Alabama, where, you know, basically that's the whole story around To Kill a Mockingbird, of her growing up in Monroeville. Of course, the actual town is Macomb, where Kill a Mockingbird is referenced. But Monroeville, there's been so much written about Monroeville. You know, the small town in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, a declining population of 6,300. But in that town, Harper Lee and Truman Capote lived.
What are the odds?
What are the odds? And they lived, and actually Truman Capote would come visit his cousins right next door to where Harper Lee lived. And so that's how they became friends. So what does Truman Capote say? I'm Dill in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Of course.
Yes.
All right, you mentioned the impact on this, or at least the book release here. I have it here. Heavy pre-orders for the publisher of this, and
2 million copies.
Yeah, that's
just incredible when you really think about it. They're releasing 2 million copies of To Set A Watchman, of a book that was somehow found in a safe deposit box, and apparently is behind the manuscript of To Kill a Mockingbird, and it's because an editor said, you know, the power of editors. An editor said, hey, I don't think I want her to be that old. I want her to be a young scout growing up in the Deep South. That's the book we want. And that's why Set A Watchman was set aside until now. And I think that's that's why everybody's such a furor about it, because there's controversy about how the book was found. Was it in a safety deposit box? Was it found in 2011? Was it found in 2014? Who found it? You know, Harper Lee has a very close-knit set of friends. You know, even where the assisted living center she lives, there's a guard who sits outside 24 hours a day.
Wow, that's
so they can't get in to see Harper Lee. So, you know, that's the mystery behind Harper Lee, or behind Nell Lee, who hasn't granted an interview since the 60s, is about as much as the book itself. And I think that's what's created everybody, the excitement about it is because of Harper Lee herself.
The lack of information, the lack of access.
The lack of information, the lack of access, and the fact that how exactly this book came to be. And, you know, and people have told me, and that's what they've told me, I love To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't know what I'm going to feel as I'm reading Set A Watchman, but they want to read it. They want to understand how Scout grew up.
It'll be interesting to see the movie that you know bound to be made of a Watchman, right? And who stars in that?
Who would play Atticus in a modern version Go Set A
in
Watchman.
his 70s at this point, right?
Yes, and no, it'd be in the 50s.
Well, I mean, would be 70.
Yeah,
in his 70s.
I think he's in the 70s. The first chapter says he's suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. He has trouble closing his hands. You know, he struggles physically that you didn't see in the original version, except he kind of was a slow-moving, deep-reading type of guy, a deep thinker, type of that hero type of individual. It'll be interesting to see who he is in the 70s and who would play that particular character.
Good stuff.
And you know, what about Reese Witherspoon as Jean Louise, the older scout? You know,
Makes
hey.
perfect sense, though, doesn't it?
She's already read the audio version of the book.
She's already invested.
She's already invested in it.
All right, you can invest in Go Set A Watchman. It comes out on Tuesday. Stop by Best of Books, Kicking Bird Square up in Edmond. Pick up a copy of that, or pick up a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, or any number of other books. Joe, great to see you again. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for the analysis and the context of
It's going to be fun next Tuesday.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
And congratulations to you and Bayou Grill on the dinners.
Thank you very much. We're excited about it. We're excited about the people who are coming. But again, Harper Lee won't be there, but it will be fun, okay?